Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video first look and a tour of the hardware of the Seoul Computer netbook. This is a 10.1-inch netbook which runs on Windows 7 and sells for a rather hefty $1,000. It's not the latest nor the greatest anymore as far as the processing power, but what makes it really unique is it has a Pixel QI display, which is a sunlight-readable display that uses a transflective technology, just like on a Kindle ebook reader or on any typical ebook reader. It still makes the text completely legible when you take it outdoors. When you're indoors, it acts like just any other typical color screen. It's pretty vibrant and shows off colors fairly well. It's a matte screen that doesn't glare, which is definitely nice. Otherwise, Pixel QI is now defunct, but it was once led historically by Mary Lou Jepsen, and she's an interesting figure because she was once the head of the display tech division at Google X, and she's responsible for a lot of projects, including how the displays might one day interact with us on virtual reality headsets, and they could certainly help us improve the issue that we face with glaring on our smartphones as well as computers that we use generally from day to day. Of course, the tech is still a little bit on the expensive side, but again, looking at this netbook, it certainly is a product that takes a step in the right direction, although it's still mainly used and geared for industrial use as well as companies just because of this higher price point. Otherwise, the company behind this, again, Seoul Computer, they also make a few other models of larger laptops, full-size 15.6 inches. It sells for a bit more in terms of the MRSP, as well as netbooks, as well as tablets that may run on Android. But this version of the netbook is fairly portable. It's about an ultra portable, I would say, in size, which is under 2 pounds. Has that fairly standard components inside for the time as well. So it had an Intel Atom processor. It's not a Bay Trail, unfortunately, but just a dual-core Intel Atom with optional 1 or 2 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. So a little bit slow, but it could still handle any text documents as well as web browsing fairly well, as well as viewing back some Flash content and video files. Otherwise, again, the main show here is just being that Pixel QI display, which is outstanding for using outdoors. So if you're someone who's constantly working out in the sun, this could be quite beneficial. So we'll take a closer look at the design next. A bit more specs about this thing. It does have a fairly good battery on board, which allows you to still use it for, I would say, 5 to 6 hours typically. If you have the transflective mode turned on, it actually saves you a bit of battery as well because there isn't a backlight coming on, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, it runs on Windows 7 Home Premium, fairly rugged as far as design is concerned, but I would say isn't the most rugged because it's not dust-proof, nor is it any IPX certified for water resistance or anything like that. It does have a chiclet-style keyboard, and the screen resolution is 1024 by 600, so fairly standard WSVGA. It has Wi-Fi, it has Bluetooth, a 4,400 mAh capacity battery, and otherwise has a 250 gigabyte hard drive on board. So taking a closer look now, again, we have this fairly matte surface, which doesn't attract too much fingerprints, which is nice to see. On the right-hand spine, you have access to two 3.5mm headphone jacks for plugging in 2 pairs of headphones. Great for music sharing if you want to listen to music on a plane or if you're traveling. There's also a third microphone input using that standard 3.5mm jack, and there's one USB 2.0 port. There isn't any USB 3.0 ports. There's also an array of LED lights which will indicate when the hard drive is being read, an Ethernet port for wired internet, and a proprietary charging port which has actually been sponsored and used by LightOn. On the left-hand spine, you have access to ventilation grills to prevent it from the netbook from overheating. It does have fans underneath here, so it's not completely silent, although good enough, and the temperature remains fairly cool in operation. There's also 2 additional USB 2.0 ports. That's a total of 3, and also a VGA port for video output onto a monitor or a projector. So there isn't an HDMI port on this, unfortunately, nor is there again USB 3.0, nor is there a DVD drive or an optical drive, which is pretty expected for an ultra portable and a netbook of this caliber. Overall, it feels well made, and the handle here has some rubber accents, which makes it quite easy to grip. So opening things up, we can access the screen as well as a keyboard on the inside. You can see we have a fairly generous and attractive looking internal design going on. We have about a 3-inch trackpad, which is multi-touch supported, allows you to swipe and up and down go through the main UI as well as the web browsers. Pinch and zoom is supported. The left and right keys feel pretty tactile and responsive. Because this is a netbook as opposed to a full-size laptop, the keyboard is not going to be full-sized. However, after typing on this for about 5 minutes, I really got used to it. I didn't have any issues with accuracy as well as with my speed. This is because it's fairly tactile and the travel between the keys is decent. I also like the font size being used here. So all in all, really not a bad computer keyboard for netbooks as well as ultra portables. I've seen far worse, and I think this does a pretty good job as far as word processing and answering longer emails. You have access to a dedicated row for icons like volume controls as well as media controls. That works fairly well too, and there's a power on-off switch on the very top. Finally, there's the Seoul logo and then that very interesting Pixel QI screen, which makes it a lot easier to read when you're outdoors in the sun compared to a typical LED or AMOLED screen from a Samsung phone or from your iPad or your iPhone. And the very top also features the aforementioned 1.3 megapixel webcam for Skype calls, video conferencing, and there's a noise canceling microphone as well. So that's basically what the hardware looks like. As far as the performance goes, it's pretty standard because the components here are definitely, I would say, about 2 or 3 years out of date, and it's a typical netbook as far as that regard is. Fairly speedy boot up time, takes about 5 to 6 seconds, which is not bad. You can definitely upgrade this thing to Windows 8 and Windows 10 if you want to, but otherwise, just word processing, if you're doing a lot of multitasking, it's going to slow down. Really, that main interesting thing here is that display, which is Pixel QI, great for industry use and great for individuals who are constantly outdoors. One thing that I'm not really happy about with this particular netbook's design is that the hinge itself isn't too flexible. It only opens up to about, I would say over the 90-degree mark by maybe an additional 30 degrees. So it doesn't lie all the way down, nor does it allow you to rotate the screen and then push it down again, which would have been really useful because if you had that pseudo tablet mode, reading text outdoors can be a lot more handy than opening this up in this kind of stiff laptop mode. But that's a minor critique from the hinge department that I wish they could address. But otherwise, it feels very solid, and the construction quality here is really top notch. It's a little bit expensive for consumers to pick up, but definitely an interesting piece of tech from a historical and overall from the design perspective. So thank you for watching this video first look of the hardware here at OS Reviews. This has been the Seoul Computer 10.1 inch.